Hey viewers, welcome to Whale Astrology once again. And today I have a very, it's a grace, it's an honor that Mr Larsen is present in on VL Astrology. Thank you so much, Visti, for making it to VL Astrology. VL meets VL. Thanks so much for making it here. Mr Larsen is a very famous name, I think, so I don't think there is an introduction required. Being a student of Pandit Sanjay Rath, and with such a positive energy all around, and with so much of knowledge being spread all around the world, people know you, and you have been there on Babaji's channel Exotic Astrology also many times. So I think that says it all. So can you just introduce a little more, if you want to my viewers also?
Thank you, Anita. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I really look forward to bringing the topics that I have for you today to fore. So a little bit about me. So like you said, I'm a student of Pandit Sanjay Rath. We are part of the Achyutananda tradition, Achyutananda Das's tradition of Orissa, which I also know that you're familiar with. The other half of your family is part of that. One thing we were discussing earlier is our affiliation with the Achyutananda tradition and the copper plate reader, and Amarnath Mishra, who works in the actual Kakatpur Poti over there. Who we both met and had some very good times with, both of us. Personally, I started studying astrology in 1998, so I've been doing this for 20 years. My timeline was quite fast in the beginning. I studied Western astrology for 2 years from 98 till 2000. I felt I lacked a tradition after those 2 years, that I lacked mentorship. So I started studying Vedic astrology, thinking I would find it there, as I was not sure if I could find it in Western astrology. There's a lot of research done in Western astrology. I've only recently found out, many years later, that there is a very solid tradition coming from there. I just was not, knowledgeable about it. When I started Vedic astrology, I studied for 1 year of systems approach, and I also studied for 1 year from different, online sources, from Pandit Sanjay Rath, from Gauravani Jyotish List it was back then. I was very eager to go through the works of Narasimha Rao, who was studying from Pandit Sanjay Rath at the time. And in the year 2001, I joined the tradition. And that's an initiation we get. We start performing mantras to prepare ourselves to learn the Parampara mantra and the Vyasa mantra as well. We learn spiritual practices. We're doing japa. We're doing all sorts of things. We learn small things like prayers to do when you touch the floor, prayers to do when you wash your face, things like that. All these small things. So we're becoming increasingly more and more spiritual in our Jyotish practices. So that the prayer enables us to keep studying well. And then in 2002, because in the years from until 2000 to 2002, I was very prolific. So my teacher, Pandit Sanjay Rath, he wanted me to start teaching. And so he could not do so without giving me a guru mantra. So I got a guru mantra in 2002, late 2002. At this time, I had almost been with the tradition for almost 1.5 years, given permission to start, sharing knowledge, teaching. And in the year 2004, and 2004, I started practicing Jyotish as a profession. Part of this that was instrumental in that was my meeting the copper plate reader, who said, your profession is not going to be an engineer, Visti. You're going to become an astrologer. You're going to translate and write and do readings. And so since then I was practicing astrology. So now it's a good 14 years of me being an astrologer, practicing astrologer. Since then, I've become wiser. I've become a bit older, a bit smarter. I have a family. I live solely from my work in astrology. That's all I do. I teach and I
Yes.
practice, and that's what I do. That's my sole
And
profession. I don't have any other profession.
you do readings also, Visti.
Consultations,
Yes,
practices, consultations.
I'll be sharing the link to his website in the description below. And he is a very good teacher also. In fact, we were
I
having
hope so.
a nice talk before this recording when, like on the a few lessons he gave me, really imparted of, a very small bit of his knowledge, which is commendable. I really, if somebody is really looking to take up a course in astrology, this is the right place you are. You can just reach out to Visti and you can just enroll yourself without even thinking about anything else. No second
You
thoughts.
also taught me some very nice particulars in the way you were using the Ketu astrology. So you're also a good teacher yourself. I teach through srigaruda.com, and there are links distinctly to my course website called rama-edu.com, distinctly there. So for those who want to get in touch, that's where, srigaruda.com. What I'm hoping to do today, Vanita, is talk about Ketu. And what I am expecting to show you is some presentations I prepared on the topic of Ketu. And touching one graha is a very elaborate topic. Every time we touch one graha, we think it's simple, but we're touching a very elaborate topic because the limits to which you're supposed to examine that graha are not there, because you could see it from almost any perspective. So what I wanted to do is catch upon some of the most important ways of touching a graha, and specifically Ketu, which is a very special graha in Jyotish. All right. Distinctly before I begin sharing the presentation, Ketu is holding a very special place in Jyotish because it's not like the other grahas. All right. It doesn't behave the same way as the other grahas. You know, Ketu believes in the philosophy of that you can obtain everything by doing nothing. All right. That's Ketu's philosophy, because Ketu is the moksha karaka. Moksha karaka implies the stopping of karmas, all right? That the stopping, the end of karmas is happening. And the finishing of karmas, not the purpose for which most of people are living in this planet, namely to live and to grow. Ketu is not interested in this growth. In fact, the dilemma is, if Ketu had any say in you coming to this planet, it's possible you may not have even been born if Ketu had his way. All right? So Ketu can be a very tough planet to deal with in charts. And when Ketu has, let's say, a say on a person's actual birth, they may even not be fully developed, because Rahu wants you to be fully developed because he wanted you to be born. But Ketu stopped the process midway. So you can have birth defects because of Ketu, for example, if we look at it from the smallest angle. But the Ketu's purpose is to bring us back to God. All right? So I'm hoping to show how exactly we practically can use this, not necessarily speak about great sages who have achieved something magnificent within spirituality. I will show those charts, how they did it, and then we'll also learn from how they did it, but so that we know, okay, this is the way they did it. So if we know how to do that, then we can copy paste and do the same in our lives. So I'm hoping to show that. A little bit to begin with. Glad to. A little bit to begin with. So imagine, in Jyotish, we have this topic of Charakaraka, all right? Where Parashara has spoken of that these Charakaraka, and he specifically asks us to be attentive of the Atmakaraka. And the Atmakaraka is the king of the chart. Mm-hmm. And then Parashara says there is either 7 or 8 Charakaraka. Mm-hmm. And when he says there are 7, he excludes both nodes. And when he says there are 8, he excludes Ketu. So no matter which Charakaraka system you're using, he says Ketu is not part of it. All right? Our tradition says when you're using 8, it means you're a Jivatma, okay? That you're a living being. And you're using 8 because there's a Putra Karaka, and this Putra Karaka is the one who's reproducing. if you exclude Putra Karaka, you get the 7 Chara Karaka scheme, which means you're not having kids. Now, does that mean that if you don't have kids, you are that you are supposed to use the scheme? No, no, no. You're a human being. You have the possibility. Putra Kara can also be Manas Putra. That means students, right? Like Brahma had Manas Putra. They are actually students. But Ijada Atmas, those who are not even having the possibility to reproduce, they will then exclude Putra Karaka, and then they'll have 7 Charaka. So that means Rahu can be included or excluded depending on your Jadatma, excluded, Jivatma, included. So when we speak of Ketu in this scheme, he's just excluded. He's not there. He's not available. That is because these Charakaraka are like bondages, chains, all right? They are binding our body. They are binding our soul. We call them the 8 fetters or 8 chains which are holding us, holding the soul in place. And the Shiv Puran explains that there are these, what we call the Ashtamurti of Shiva, who are worshipped to release us from these Ashtabandhana, all right? Or at least to control these Ashtabandhana. I'm sure those who are more learned in other literature will also speak of 9 bondages, 9 bandhana, where you include Maya as a bondage. That is also part of the discussion here, because then we're talking about Naisargika Karaka and Navagraha scheme. You know, there are 9 bondages based on Navagraha scheme. There's Ashtabandhana based on Atma, which is the Charakaraka. So Ketu is the only one saying, I'm not part of this. And he's also the one who is interested in leaving this. When we talk about directions in Jyotish, there we say 8 horizontal directions, okay? You know, north, south, east, west, and then the ones in between, you know? So then we get 4 plus 4, 8. And then these 8 horizontal directions are the directions of karma. Ketu's direction is also included in this, but it's neither of the horizontal ones, it's pure up. And so, when we speak of Ketu, he is the one who says, why should I be part of this planet? All right? Let us exit. All right? That exit point is Ketu. So, in speaking about Ketu, we're describing whom is the exit point? How does he create this exit point? Where should you go looking for this exit point? How to know whether life events in your life are accommodating or removing your exit point from you, making it less or more available. And I would like to add to this, we're discussing moksha and mukti, and let's not get carried away with the idea that moksha and mukti is something you can only experience when you die, all right? Because the real topic behind this is called freedom, right? Freedom implying absolute freedom also in this life, all right? How many of you work and work and work and have zero freedom in your lives? Or who don't work and also have zero freedom in your lives? How to know where you have to go to get that freedom? Okay? Where should you go to get that freedom? Ketu will tell us. So even in this life, be free. All right? That is the discussion we're going to have on Ketu today. So,
Great.
Vanita, would you like to say something before we open the slides?
Yes, Ketu is the Moksha Karaka, as you said. I also feel that somebody who is running Ketu Dasha should actually go in for astrology courses mainly. I don't know, somehow I've met people who have been running through Ketu Dasha and they say that, oh, we somehow got inclined and got into astrology. Or maybe Saturn Dasha, of course, which is not the topic of today's. But yes, Ketu is, like the liberation, as I say, every time in my write-ups and all I've written, whatever I've written is about Ketu, that it's a liberating planet which has no head. So it's something that, I think will be clearer in your slides, through your slides. I think people will get to know even more. The ones who really want to know about Rahu and Ketu, especially Ketu, and the myths that they have, they will get a different, they'll change their opinion today, I'm sure, with your slides coming your way.
I hope so. Okay, let's get started then. Let me see here. And I think I'm sharing the slides now. And Vanita, I hope you can see them clearly. And let me see here. Now,
Yes, there was.
Lovely. So, what to read from Ketu? And of course, this is just the beginning slide, and we should, of course, go to the next one. And what I'm interested in is that when we talk about Ketu, that we have to first ascertain which signs it's related to. All right? This is a big topic because whenever we talk about Ketu and signs and lordships, there are so many opinions. The first, most prominent opinion is Ketu doesn't have any sign that it belongs to. It doesn't lord any sign, and it doesn't exalt anywhere, and doesn't debilitate anywhere. It is not really a graha. It's an imaginary position. It should not belong to any place. And this, I can understand this view. But the thing is, the reason we are even entertaining the idea of Rahu and Ketu having any placement and lordship rather in the chart is because that they are what we call nodes of the moon. And the moon distinctly is supposed to indicate those beings which are Pashu in this planet, all right? The living beings. And the nodes of the moon are points in the sky which are supposed to show how the karma is rising to a high note, Rahu, and when the karma is going to a low note, Ketu. So these are like the barometer of the moon, the barometer of all the Pashus in this planet. And we term them appropriately in English. We use the term karmic control planets, which is a very, very appropriate term. And based on this role of Rahu and Ketu, they also get signs in which they are showing how they are dealing with the karmic control of the individual. Now, I would like to entertain a principle here before I speak of what this slide shows. And this is a peculiar principle that when you learn astrology from the beginning, you always learn lordship from the beginning. Pretty much that's the first thing you learn. And then when you learn about the lordship, you're being taught, acha, take Leo and Cancer as the king and queen of the zodiac, right? That's such a nice principle.
Acha.
Thank you. So spend enough time in India and you will get such, things as part of one's vocabulary, So now, you will get that, let's see, that you have Leo as the place where the sun is the king, and Cancer is where the moon lords, and that's the queen. And then the adjacent signs to that will tell us the lordship of the remaining planets. Next to the king and queen is the prince, Mercury. So Leo is next to Virgo, and Cancer is next to Gemini. So the Prince Mercury lords Gemini and Virgo. And so on, you'll be taught that next to that becomes Venus, one of the ministers, the close interior minister. So Venus is lording Taurus next to Gemini, and Venus lords Libra next to Virgo. So, and then we will move on and we'll get Mars and Jupiter and Saturn in that order. Some people even use this to define the chakras of the body. That's a different topic, different time, okay? Now, at this stage, then when one has learned astrology and you've learned these lordships, then at some point in time, you will, of course, have started asking, well, what's the difference between Gemini and Virgo? They're both lorded by Mercury. And then people come up with very solid methodology. Gemini is like the third sign from Aries, the leader of the zodiac, and Virgo is like the sixth sign. So the difference is that one is like communication. Gemini is communication focused. It's an odd sign. It likes to talk. It's more extrovert, and Virgo is more introvert, being an even sign, and then so on and so forth. We get symbols and whatnot. But imagine if we already at the basis of the lordships started giving them different designations. Interesting? So for those who have learned the lordships, try adding this to give a different connotation to the signs. Among Gemini and Virgo, which both have the lordship of Mercury, in the tradition we say Rahu also lords Virgo. Okay? Hello? Now Gemini and Virgo have a very different connotation. One is only lorded by Mercury. The other one is lorded by both Mercury and Rahu. Mhm. Whenever I see Mercury in a sign alone, I treat it as if it's Gemini over there. If I see Mercury and Rahu conjoined in a sign, I treat it as if Virgo is conjoined over there. So it may be that these two planets are joined in Taurus, but now that Taurus has become like Virgo. Peculiar. So how would this be useful? Let us say somebody comes and they said, can you read my Lagna results? So Lagna, let's say the person is Taurus Lagna. And let's say Mercury is in the Lagna. Then I won't read the results of Taurus. I'll go straight and start reading the results of Gemini for first house. Okay? Or try something a bit different. Let's say Aries is the Lagna and Mercury is in Taurus. Alone. Has to be alone. Then instead of me reading the results for Aries Lagna and second house from Aries, which the shlokas will say, okay, their wealth will be like this because of Taurus, their speech will be like this because of Taurus. I won't read those results from the Aries Lagna shlokas. I will go in and see what are the Taurus Lagna shlokas, because it's as if Gemini is the second house. And then I read only those shlokas pertaining to speech and wealth and family from the Taurus Lagna shlokas, and I'll take that one paragraph and add to my Aries Lagna prediction and remove the Taurus second house prediction. So then I can make a Lagna chart with shlokas from different Lagnas and put together to get the right shlokas for this chart, because in this chart Mercury is in second house. It's not Taurus, it's Mercury there, so it's like Gemini over there. Similarly, what if Mercury and Rahu were joined in Taurus? Then, and if it was Mesha Lagna Aries, and I had to read second house results for Mesha Lagna, then I will start reading Simha Lagna second house results, because it will be as if Kanya is in the second house, if Mercury and Rahu joined. Peculiar. But this is actual Jyotish, you know. We're actually stylizing the chart to suit what is going on in the chart.
Right.
All right? Now, take this one step further, because I've only explained what we do for Gemini and Virgo. Now I have to explain Taurus and Libra. What is the difference? Mm-hmm. Have you ever heard of a planet which does not lord its Mula Trikona sign? I have not heard of that. You know? So why shouldn't Moon also lord Taurus? Because the Mula Trikona of Moon is Taurus. So what is the difference between Taurus and Libra? Moon and Venus are lording Taurus, and Venus alone lords Libra. Okay? So wherever Moon and Venus are joined, it's as if Taurus is over there. We call it Annapurna Yoga, plenty of food. Moon, Venus, it's like Taurus over there. How about Aries and Scorpio? So we in the tradition say, Acha, Ketu lords Scorpio. All right? Ketu lords Scorpio. So the difference between Aries and Scorpio is Mars and Ketu joined, and Mars-Ketu lordship is purely of Scorpio, and Mars alone lords Aries. So when you see Mars alone in the sky, think Aries. When you see Mars and Ketu joined, think Scorpio. All right? Now, Sagittarius, Pisces. We say Pisces, Meena, is the sign of the Rishis, and we have shlokas telling us that Ketu can lord Pisces. So Sagittarius is pure Jupiter, and Pisces is Jupiter and Ketu, a pure Rishi yoga. Mm-hmm. Then we have Kumbha and Makara. Makara, pure lorded by Shani. Kumbha, we add the lordship of Rahu, so Shani and Rahu are both lording that sign. With that, you have now differentiated all the signs' natures. None of them are the same now. All of them are different. And we had to do so by adding a node of the moon or the moon itself. So what was the addendum? Moon or its nodes. So we started with karmic control planets and Pashu Janma, animal birth, okay? Or human birth for that matter is like animal in a sense. So Moon and Rahu have now changed the picture of the chart. Mm-hmm. And now just adding these these principles here. What I'm teaching is part of at least 500-year-old tradition. And we have shlokas. There are many shlokas that are also being added to this. I can mention, Parashara has mentioned Rahu and Ketu's lordship and exaltation. But he's not given all of them, at least in the shlokas we have. We have Gyan Pradipika, which is also given some. All right? There is a Hora Makarand, which is also given some. And we have these books which are trying to explain what the lordships and exaltations and whatnot of the nodes are. Gyan Pradipika is a bit of a sensitive topic because there are many versions of Gyan Pradipika. So bear with me, bear with also the translation when you read those shlokas, all right? But with that, we have a paradigm that we use in the tradition, which is not a new paradigm, it's an old one. And we say, Ketu specifically is lording the signs of Scorpio, the natural eighth house, in which karma is measured, and Pisces, where the mukti is supposed to happen, the place of the rishis as well. Of these, Vrishika or Scorpio is the Swakshetra. That's where he feels at home. That is where he feels most comfortable. Meena or Pisces is where he does his job. That's the Multrikona sign. Every graha has a Multrikona where it does its job and a place where he feels at home. Sometimes they're the same. Okay? Now, like the sun, he has the same. His place of living and his place of work are the same. He lives in the kingdom, in the palace. All right? That's why he's the king. And then we have these oscillating purposes for the nodes, because I said they're karmic control planets. So that means they change depending on the karma they do. So the three types of karma we know in Vedic principle are Shrishti, Sthiti, and Samhara. Shrishti means creation, Sthiti means to sustain, which means wealth accumulation, essentially, and Samhara. We are most interested in Sthiti and Samhara because we've already been created, all right? But I'm sure when people start getting more into the topics of conception charts, what we call the Garbhadhana, Nisheka charts, these things, when these chakras or charts get it more into fore, which have available shlokas for them in the Shastras, Parashara notwithstanding, then we can start differentiating between these. Now, but this is important for the nodes. Distinctly for Samhara, Ketu exalts in Leo. So Ketu gives longevity and prolongs the time period that you will be alive in the sign of Leo. That means he's delaying death in essence. Okay? Samhara. And he is debilitated in Vrishabha. So he's not good for longevity in Vrishabha. Ketu can cause longevity problems in Vrishabha. All right? Taurus. For Sthiti purposes, this is where we should all be awake. We're human beings, right? We need to make sure the bank account is in order. So, for Sthiti purposes, Ketu is Ucha in Danu, Sagittarius, and Nicha in Mithuna. Which is better for wealth? Good question, right? Depends. Normally, we prefer that the nodes are Nicha in Kendra for wealth, because malefics are better to have Nicha in Kendra for wealth. All right? If they're not in Kendra, you prefer the Ucha. So, this is important for wealth purposes. For Shrishti, which we rarely use, Ketu is Ucha in Karka and Nicha in Makara. I have rarely seen this being used, but I was taught it. All right? So we have some principles related to this. So this is where we start off the teachings on the topic of Ketu, right? So, I think we can go to the next slide. Let's see.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
Yes. Yes. Now, having learned that beginning principle, which I'm going to employ in different ways in these presentations, we at least have the basis for what we call Ketu's placement and lordship, and coming from one tradition. All right? And, I'm biased. I'm from a tradition. We use this. We use it every day. People have different opinions. I welcome them. As long as we can put them to the test, I welcome them. I put my principles to the test every day. But if anybody has some different opinions on how they use them, feel free. All right? Now, Ketu Karaka. This is where we get to the next step of really using the Ketu principle, right? And this is important because whenever we start reading charts, we have to understand what is the role of the graha in the chart. For example, we read Venus for relationships, right? Nobody's in doubt about that. We read Mercury, among other things, for career, among other things, all right? Education, more importantly, some people will argue. And some people will say, well, if you're not knowledgeable, then how can you have a good job? So that's part of the whole education to career, whole paradigm. And similarly, we need some role that Ketu should play in the chart, because otherwise he's literally just a graha moving around in the sky, and we don't know how to approach him. We don't know how to personalize him. When should I examine Ketu when I read a chart? Ketu is the karaka for moksha, and more importantly for freedom, right? Like I was mentioning earlier, your personal amount of freedom. Mhm. Now, how does freedom look like? Like, if we talk about something tangible in this planet, what does it look like?
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you start looking at the globe as a whole and you start differentiating between the countries and the cultures of the continents or the locations, will you argue that, let's say, a place like Scandinavia, people are very free in their thoughts and very free in their behaviors, and they do what they want, right? There's there's not too much of societal stigma
Right.
in those countries, in that area. So don't you think they are behaving much more like Ketu? Some people even say they behave headlessly, some of the people there.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you hear about the youth on the street, what are they doing? They're doing what they want, right? They are partying, they're behaving crazy. And then you start arguing, oh, we wish that these youth had more culture. We wish they behaved better. But they are using their personal freedom. So when Ketu starts dominating over an area, it starts giving those people more personal freedom. And then you hope that that freedom
Mm-hmm.
is within bounds, right? Yes,
Mm-hmm.
because the dilemma of giving people more freedom is that they can go out of bounds, they can behave headlessly, and that is also Ketu. All
Yes.
right, he is the freedom giver for those areas. So you will see, let's say, for example, I mentioned Scandinavia, that Ketu has a very strong role in that area of Scandinavia. Okay, it is having a strong predominance. Maybe one of the signs of Ketu has a say in that area. For example, Pisces or Scorpio is having a say on that area. If there are more occultists, then you would say Scorpio. If they're simply behaving freely and are very focused on education and knowledge and logic, maybe also to some extent, the Jupiterian of the two signs will be more prominent, like Pisces. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you went to a very spiritually very focused country, for example, Ireland, where the kids also behave very free, people also behave very freely. There's a bit less stigma, but there's a bit stronger history of aggression there, and they have a lot more churches, and there's a strong what we call philosophy of priesthood and churches and having popes, not popes, I'm sorry, monks also there. Then you have a place like Ireland, which has more Scorpio dominance, for example. So like that, Ketu is actually showing its results in such areas. Okay? Now, maybe before we take a small break, I'll just go through this. And Ketu is not the primary karaka for any house. When we talk about karakas for houses, Ketu is not a primary karaka for any house. Like if you go through the house karakas, Sun is karaka for first house, Guru for second house, Mangal for third house, fourth house Chandra is the main karaka. Some people say Buddha along with, but Moon is definitely pradhana, main one, highest primary karaka. Guru again for the fifth house, Shani, some say also Mangal for the sixth, but Shani is pradhan. Seventh house Shukra, eighth house again Shani, ninth house Guru, 10th house Buddha, and some additionals. Buddha is mainly we use, but some people argue, okay, so also Surya, also Guru, also Shani, but Buddha is very much the pradhan there. Then Labha Bhava, Guru again. Some would argue Shani, but Guru is the Pradhan Karaka. And finally, for the 12th house, Shani again. All right? So Ketu was not mentioned, Rahu was not mentioned. Mm-hmm. None of the nodes were mentioned because they do not become primary Karakas for any house. They become secondary Karakas. Now, these secondary or Sukshma, subtle is more appropriate word to use, Sukshma, subtle Karaka. Therein, Ketu is the Sukshma Karaka for the 4th house, 8th house, and 12th house. The Moksha Trikona actually, practically it doesn't sound very much like Moksha when I use Ketu as Karaka for 4th house, because I'll use it to see conjoined properties such as apartments and townhouses. Distinctly, Ketu likes to put people in structures very close together when he makes people live together. You know? So this is the other side of Ketu, like insects in one big castle. You know, like an anthill, you know? So Ketu can make the anthill and make people live in anthills. And how do they do it? How does he do it? He does it through apartments, flats, townhouses, okay, condos. Anything which is in a conjoined housing situation, that's Ketu's role. So people who earn from that, who live in that, they will have Ketus playing a very important place in their chart. All right. Many people live in conjoined properties nowadays. It's a huge part of the infrastructure. So that means Ketu is playing a bigger role in such places. Now, Ketu is also responsible for the 8th house. But herein, he's talking about karma. 8th house is where you perform adharma. 8th house. Dharma is 9th house.
Dharma
so the
is
loss of dharma
12th house.
is 8th from the lagna, 12th from 9th house. Yes. So what's happening here is that in this role, we say that Shani is Pradhan, main Karaka, but then you have Rahu and Ketu, who are also having a role. And they have two different roles. Rahu, what is Adharma? Adharma means that you have not done justice. You have not done the appropriate and right thing to the individual indicated by the 8th house. Okay? For example, take simple steps. If you have Makara Lagna, then your 8th house is Simha, Surya is the Lord. Without even knowing anything more, you can make a prediction for Makara Lagna. They will not do the right thing to their father. Okay? Simple. They will not do right by their father. Simple prediction. Okay? Now, what if you have a different Lagna and Surya is in 8th house? No, you are not treating your father properly. Okay? Chandra in the 8th, it is mother, even lording. You know, mother is the one who you're not doing justice to. Manga, siblings, Buddha, friends. Okay? Guru would indicate teachers, mentors, even children. So we're taking straight karakas here, right? So Shani indicates self, actually. You know, if Shani is in the 8th house or lording the 8th house, usually the person is neglecting their own body. All right? Shani is what we call one of the stira karakas for the self. All right? So you are not doing justice to yourself if Shani is the 8th lord or placed in the 8th house. Person should learn detoxification. If they start doing that, they will have very good health. All right? Now,
it's a secret house also. So, you know, Ketu is also secrecy. So, 8th house.
Yes, there's that part of it. What I wanted to, I will explain that in a minute. So I'll get to that. So what Rahu and Ketu are doing to the person in this regard, or before I say anything, I should say, if Rahu is innate, the person doesn't do proper to foreigners, okay? And if Ketu is innate, the person does not do justice to people of their own community, okay? Rahu is outside the border, Ketu is inside the border. We always talk about foreigners and Rahu, but what about Ketu? Your own people. So Ketu indicates your own countrymen.
Right, right.
Okay. If Ketu doesn't like you, he'll throw you out of the country. All right? Peculiar. That can happen also. Now, so you can have these planets in 8th house or lording the 8th house. But how does Ketu become the Karaka? Ketu becomes the Karaka for showing how you disregarded somebody out of a mistake. You weren't thinking. Okay? Like you can have Surya in the 8th house. And you can do two types of karma to your father. One is mistake, Ketu. You know, you disregarded, you didn't think about. The other one is Rahu. You deliberately did something wrong. Okay? And that's also a problem. So we have Rahu as a karaka for that as well. And maybe if in a chart we knew that Surya was in 8th house, and we saw there's a problem with father, I could read where Surya is from the Ketu to see where you're making mistakes with your father, for example. Yeah. And from Rahu to see where you're doing justice. Okay? Like that. Now, that's how he becomes Karaka for the 8th house. 12th house.
You were saying something about the secrecy part? What was that?
Yes, thank you for reminding me.
Yeah.
So, secrecy admittedly is also seen from the 8th house. But there's a difference in how you approach it. Because if you see 8th house from the Lagna, you're seeing how the person is treating secrets. Okay? This could be the person works with secrets. What's one way of working with secrets? You could be working for secret services, right? But if it's work, there should be a link between 8th and 10th, right? It could also be somebody who's doing research, right? Unraveling secrets. So that's somebody who is doing mining, researching. That's also an 8th house activity. So Ketu associated with a profession, 10th house, and the 8th house can indicate somebody who is working with something which is within secrecy. And Rahu can indicate within research. But whether something is kept a secret or not in a person's life, that is not dependent on the 8th from Lagna, but the 8th from Moon. Distinctly, the 8th from Moon shows what is this person keeping secret. Okay? What is the biggest secret of the person's life? See the 8th from Moon. All right? So, that's an interesting part. It also shows what the person wants to keep secret, 8th from the Moon.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's a
That's
difference.
interesting.
The
Yeah.
reason is because the Moon indicates your consciousness. I'm sorry, you were saying?
No, that's interesting. That's interesting.
All right. So having said this, I think we will go to the
We can,
next slide.
yeah. So you want to speak on the 12th house anymore? Like, you want to elaborate on
Thank you.
that?
I will actually be speaking on this in
All right.
the slides. This is where I'll be elaborating more.
All
But
right.
this is where we start getting into, well, what is, when we talk about the 12th house, there can be an aspect of loss there, but there's also this aspect of spiritual growth there, the faith, what we call faith in God. So the strength of the 12th Lord can tell us how much faith the person has in God and in their Ishtadevata.
Okay.
So I will be touching this a bit, okay,
Sure.
when we get
So we'll be meeting soon in the next part. And thanks, Visti. It was really a different perspective. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And see you soon. Stay blessed, everyone. Om Tat Sat.